The whole point of this, for those who aren't familiar, the whole concept is what's known as let's play. So someone plays a video game and they chat. Sometimes they video themselves. It's very popular on Twitch, and people can engage in real time with that person while they're playing their game. And some people can make very good. People can make careers out of it. That's not what I'm going for. This is really just for my own amusement. I like to challenge myself. Right, edit skater. So I'm gonna quickly go through this. I'll do a little bit of chit chatting while I'm setting this all up. But I'm not gonna go. Right, name. DK. Like Donkey Kong. No, Drift King. Yeah, my full name is Daniel Kyle Pike. My mother wanted to call me Kyle. My dad wanted to call me Daniel. And he won that argument, so thanks, Dad. I like that name. I'm not too keen on the name Kyle. It's an alright name. My nephew's called Kyle, so that name made it house. You know, it got in there eventually, 13 years later. Yes, my hometown is Corby. Lived there for 16 years, and it was a strange old town to grow up in. It's almost like its own little Scottish colony. Because during the Second World War, a lot of, especially Glaswegians, it wasn't just Glaswegians, and it wasn't just Scottish, you had Irish people too, but they went to Corby for the steelworks during the Second World War, and they never left. So I'm essentially like this second generation Scotsman living in Corby, hence the weird quasi-Scottish English accent. Especially when I'm drunk, especially when I'm being emphatic, that Scottish little twang comes out. Like Corby. I'm going to be like proper grammatical, correct, making sure everything's got its capital letters. I'm also a writer. I published a book back in 2021, December of 2021, Christmas Eve in fact, called FauxVille. It's a psychological thriller, techno thriller / sci-fi. My age, well, I'm 30, I'll be 31 in 4 weeks. How does that mean? Oh, we'll just round it up. 31. There we go. I'm male. This is a game from 2003, so there's no non-binary sentence. It's just male or female. If that triggers you, well, I didn't make it for you, Janet. That'll do. We'll leave it at that. I'm not going to fart around with it too much. Just keep it simple. I'm a minimalist at heart. But yeah, I published a book back in 2021. It's doing alright. Audio book comes out in just under 2 weeks. So I'll be plugging that in the next few episodes. But not on this one. There's a time and a place. For now, I'm just getting acquainted with this new setup, with the whole capture card, and yeah. So I'm basically just going to be playing, talking about life, talking about whatever comes to my head. You know, if you like Tony Hawk's Underground, then great. I hope I can entertain you while I talk. But this is really more just like a little visual aid more than anything. The main focus is going to be the chatting. So I'm pretty decent at this game, but I'm not a good multitasker, so it might hamper my gameplay because I'll be focusing on what I'm saying next. So I apologise in advance if I take little pauses here and there. If I'm on a bit of a doing a deep dive on a particular topic, and I'm just like, look, I'm going to have to pause because I need to think. But yeah, the reason why I chose this game in particular is because it was quite special when it came out. So 2003, I'm 11 years of age. And, you know, I got Asperger's, right? And that's not me self-diagnosing. I was actually diagnosed by a legit doctor when I was like 3 years of age. I didn't communicate too well. My mum, my dad, they knew something was up because they'd be watching these other kids kind of find themselves. And then there's me just making little noises, spazzing out and running around, being me, I guess. So they're like, right, this kid's a bit different. You know, my mum told me this story. She said that when, you know, one of the things that they would do to diagnose someone back then is that they would have the kids, if they were like 3-4 years of age, they'd have them engage in some sort of role play. So the kids, even at that young age, they would get like a little Barbie doll, an action man, and they would, they would imitate what they knew. Me, on the other hand, apparently, I would, I'd get a little toy car and I'd just be rolling it up and down, just looking at the tires, not really doing any sort of role play. And they just knew, they're like, oh yeah, he's different. And it wasn't long after that I got the old diagnosis. And you know, it's part of who I am. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't want to be anyone else. I like who I am, but it's taken me a long time to get to this level. You know, just hit R. I'm doing it. There we go. Cool. Like I said, you know, sometimes I've got to concentrate, so I'm pretty good at jumping back on topic. If I get a little sidetracked, here's what it is. Uh-oh. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do a grab. Oh, let's just get this out of the way, and then I'll do my little Asperger's rant. I actually read a book about Asperger's back in the summer of 2022. It was absolutely fascinating because it already told me a lot about what I already knew, but it also taught me some new things that I wasn't aware of, or certain terminologies that I was not really that familiar with. Why do I keep doing that? I want to do a grab. There we go. Yeah, man, right, look at that. That's what we're talking about. Cool. Oh, that'll do. So yeah, one of the things that, you know, I'm reading through this book about Asperger's and it's explaining in great detail about a lot of things. I took some notes. Some of it I remembered. And there were things where I was like, it was taking me back through my whole life. I remember moments. One of the most interesting things for me was the idea of what's called mimicking. So mimicking is when someone with Asperger's, especially when they're in like a social group amongst their peers, they will start to mimic the behaviors of who they perceive in their head to be the most socially successful. What the fuck am I doing? Of who they perceive to be the most socially successful within the peer group. They'll start to imitate their characteristics, their behaviors, even like the way they dress, the way they hold themselves. It's fascinating stuff. But the problem with that is it takes you further away from really figuring out your own identity of who you are. Because that's the most important thing. And it's not even just kids with Asperger's, like any adolescent goes through that process of trying to figure out what they're about, who they are. It's almost like an existentialist dilemma. You know, you spend your whole childhood taking on the wisdom or lack thereof of your parents. And by the way, sometimes this game soft locks, so I create new. That DK2, we're going to call it DK3. That DK2 was the test run, and it was okay, but it was pretty slow going. Whereas now I've sort of found my rhythm, so I'm quite comfortable now. Call that the test run. But yeah, you know, we spend our childhoods taking on the wisdom of not just our parents, but those around us, those that we kind of in our heads perceive to be those in a position of authority, whether it be teachers, whether it be uncles or older cousins or older siblings. We kind of take on board or certain elements of their values, and we incorporate that to be part of our own identity. But then when you get to your adolescence, you start to go through a rebellious phase. Some of the things that you've been told, you start to become aware to the hypocrisy of our influences. And it leaves us feeling frustrated, angry, resentful. And then we go down that path of trial and error and figuring things out for ourselves. So I'm playing this video game just at the sort of beginning of that time. You know, I was a good student at school to begin with, you know, but then I started to see the hypocrisy. And not even just the hypocrisy, but I was becoming more aware of the bigger picture. That these teachers were just human beings like me. They were flawed, and they were just trying to make their money. You know, some of them might have started off as teachers with good intentions, but because of the red tape, because of the bureaucracy, because of the actual struggle that it is to be a public school teacher, they just sort of lost that drive, and they're just trying to get through life. They're just trying to get to retirement in one piece. And some teachers, man, they had it rough. You know, my school, Lodge Park, it was an interesting school to say the least. I mean, I've got some great memories, so I have no regrets. But you know, I was bullied because I was a late bloomer. You know, even at 16 years of age, yeah, I was tall, but I was gangly and I was fresh faced and I was awkward. You know, because I didn't know who I was still figuring it out. It took me to like my mid to late 20s to really figure out. Not 100% completely, because I don't think anybody's got it all figured out. We're a work in progress until the day we die. But there comes a point when you get older, especially when you hold yourself accountable and you start to do a lot of self-reflection and you go through that trial and error, that you start to build up a matrix of data, of do's and don'ts, depending on your environment, depending on your circumstances of what works and what doesn't work at any given moment. But, sorry, I just go on these long-ass tangents and I forget, well, the point I was trying to make. I mean, there doesn't really need to be a point. Every time I save the game, I get really nervous. You know what? I'm not going to save the game again until I'm done playing. Well, actually, no, that doesn't even make a difference. Nah, forget what I just said. But yeah, so around the time that this game came out, I started doing rollerblading with my friend, my best friend at the time, Andrew Cameron. I'm still talking to this man, but you know, we went in different directions. But when we were both 12 years of age, during the summer holidays of 2004, we were rollerblading, and we took it quite seriously. There was a place called, and it's still around to this day, called Adrenaline Alley. But back then, it was an outdoor park. Now it is like the second biggest indoor skate park in Europe, I think. I might be wrong, but it's big. All right, it's huge. But back when me and him went there, it was all outdoors. It was just sort of like at the beginning. And he would stay around my house pretty much nearly every day of the summer holidays. He'd bring his little sleeping bag and we would play Tony Hawk's Underground. And we'd use this as a sort of model of where we wanted to be. Because the storyline of this game is that you the protagonist, you the player are the protagonist, and you're going through this journey as you go from just being a regular young skater to climbing up the ranks to becoming a professional skateboarder. And me and him would play this game and really kind of aspire to that and think to ourselves, oh yeah, we could do that with skating. We didn't really have any clue of how we were going to do that, and we never did really go anywhere with it, but we were having fun. We were playing make-believe, and we'd even play on multiplayer, on free skate, and we would act out our own storyline, and it was beautiful, because that was one of the best things about my friendship with this kid. You know, we were both into the same things. Even as kids at junior school, we were friends from the get-go. So a year later, we're in junior school, we're in year 3, and I really started taking a liking to space, science. It wasn't just biology, chemistry, but I was really fascinated by the cosmos. I loved all the planets. You know, Uranus was my favorite planet. I used to call it Uranus back then, and people would laugh. I don't get it, and then eventually, I get it now. But yeah, Uranus was my favorite planet. I liked the color of it. He liked Neptune because it was blue. When you're 12 years old, what's that, prepubescent? Let's just say teenagers, right? We played this game, and yeah, it was a continuation of that make-believe, but we just took it a bit further, and we had that visual aid of this video game to facilitate that. And it's wonderful. You know, I always look back on that. I even message him to this day, like, because I live 200 miles away, and I haven't seen him for a couple of years now, but we're always talking. And he's someone I'd like to reconnect with more. And I told him about what I'm doing with this game. I said, look, I'm gonna be capturing this game and playing it, so I'll send you a link when it's uploaded onto YouTube and that, and I'm gonna give you a little mention because it is something that I hold dear to me, those experiences that we had. So about 2 years later, I'm 14 now, and I started doing parkour. It was quite new at the time. So the thing with parkour is that it started in France, and then it came over to the UK. There was a TV show on Channel 4 called Jump London. I never caught that one, but then a year later, Jump Britain comes out. And it it just took everyone, especially people my age. It was like a whirlwind, and shit. So there's these kids all doing this parkour stuff, and I was quite nervous at that age because, I was never much of a risk taker. I remember trying it one time and I hurt my ankle and I was like, never again. And then a year later, it just everybody was doing it. You get a lot of posers when something new emerges, whether it be scooters, roller skating. You're always going to get your little casual participants. But for me, it did wonders for my self-esteem because it put me in a place where I could truly express myself physically. And I was a bit of a chubby kid around 13 years of age, and I started to slim down. I even got like a six-pack and everything from doing all this jumping around. But back then, it was nothing to really brag about. It was quite awkward. But then through persistence and through, you get better. Quick. Yes. I did get good at it. I did it for 7 years. And I almost went professional. But for whatever reason, I just didn't quite get to that next echelon. And I have no regrets. I was 21 when I stopped. Because deep down inside, I wanted to be a writer. It wasn't for me, and I'm glad I quit when I did. I just lost interest. I remember getting to the top of this wall, and I was like, I'm done. One of the main reasons why it was so special to me is it goes back to what Nietzsche was saying about the Übermensch. Every time I was jumping around and doing my thing, somersaults and forming lines, I would tap into this more idealistic version of myself. I felt like a superhero. It's like Spider-Man when he puts on the costume. By day, he's just Peter Parker. He's a school student or he's a photographer, kid that gets bullied. But then when he puts on that suit, he's this hero. And, that's kind of how I felt when I was putting on my shoes and going out to do parkour and expressing myself. I was tapping into this more idealistic version of who I am. But when you get to like your 20s, I realized I didn't need to do those things to be that version of myself. I could just be that. We all have this idealistic version in our heads. Our ego is a strong contributor to that. I work in a gym. So you'll see people, they'll be lifting weights. They get the good pump going on, especially if they're doing weight training. They've got the tank top on. Muscle starts swelling out because of the increased blood flow. And you can see in their eyes, they're becoming this idealistic version of themselves. How they want to be, how they see themselves from their ego's perspective. And it's all well and good tapping into that to raise your self-esteem, to feel better about yourself, but it has to come from a humble source. I like to go to the gym not for aesthetics. Don't get me wrong, that will always be like a secondary thing. You got that pump going on, you're like, oh yeah, I look good, I feel good. But when you've completely exhausted yourself, you kind of walk away exasperated but enlightened. The ego's taking the back seat. Those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, go away because you're in what the Buddhists call a state of no mind. Everything just goes quiet, and you're in the moment. You're in the now, and you just feel better. So that's why exercise is important. That's why skateboarding is important. That's why parkour was important for me. Just being in the moment without the ego. Like me doing this now. God, the lighting on this is awful. The reason why I'm doing this, for example, this isn't about the ego for me. This is just pure curiosity. I wanted to revisit, not necessarily revisit my youth, but kind of combine the two elements of when I was 11 years of age, I was a gamer. I would play video games. And then I got older and I got into more sort of, oh God, nearly fucked this up. As I got older, I got into more physical things, more intellectual things. And I wanted to merge the two together, hooking up this capture card and putting it on, editing it together and putting it onto YouTube. I was just curious because also it's like a form of therapy for me. just airing out my thoughts to anyone and no one simultaneously. Stuff that I can, it's a degree of discourse with myself, because, we have thoughts all the time. But I don't know if it's just me, but I'm sure other people get this. But sometimes just saying things out loud, articulating your thoughts, can sometimes give you a different perspective. I used to do this thing called mirror therapy, where I talk to myself in the mirror, and seeing myself speak, seeing my thoughts being said aloud, really gave a different perspective. Hang on, let's see what's going on here. Sorry, no skater punks allowed in the station. Please, man, we have to get out of town. Well, that's just uncalled for. This poor man's just trying to do his job, you know what I mean? Hang on, let's get this out of the way, and then we're good. He just had a heart attack, and we're just going to leave him there. Probably had the vaccine, you know what I mean? That's controversial. I'm not bringing politics into this. I will at some point, but not now. Just kind of want to have a bit of like hairy-fairy spiritual mumbo-jumbo about myself, about where I'm at. There was a point I was making earlier that I've kind of lost a little bit, which is kind of ironic, because earlier on I was saying how I'm able to sort of dip in and out of topics without really losing my train of thought. Yeah, right, so we'll talk about parkour, right? So, or not even just about parkour, but that whole sense of the Übermensch, about becoming, yeah, that was it now, I remember. So, the reason why this game really appealed to me, and it wasn't just this game, but it was things like Jackass, or it was things like CKY, and just other kids in general, and I'm being more influenced by them. I started getting into music. Believe it or not, I used to have LimeWire. If there's any Gen Zs watching this, so LimeWire was basically a software that you would put on your computer to illegally download free music. And what this did to your computer, oh for fuck's sake, I have to restart. What this did to your computer was awful. It rotted it from the inside out. But it was free music, I didn't have money at the time. I was 14 years of age. I used to download like Marilyn Manson music, because I'm big into Marilyn Manson. A lot of his lyrics really spoke out to me, which is kind of controversial now, because that guy's got a bit of a legal situation looming over him. I won't go into the details because I don't really know too much about it, but it's not looking good. But yeah, I was, I was beginning to be influenced by my peers. All right, we're on the next level now. We'll have a little quick break and a little puff on the old vape. Yeah, a lot of kids would start drinking. They'd start smoking. We're trying to be cool. I was a good kid for the most part, because I didn't actually start smoking until I was 20 years of age. So what happened with me is that when I was 20, I'd go visit Corby to see my dad, and sometimes me and him would go up to Glasgow. And my friends Sean and Brett, I'd hang out with them and get stoned with them. They'd be playing Xbox and stuff. I was going to save the game real quickly. Hopefully it does not soft lock. I want to get at least 45 minutes of material before it does that. Because, the GameCube's a 20-year-old piece of hardware now. So, overwrite successful. So I'm just going to pause real quickly. Well, I'll just keep it like this for now. So the way I'm going to structure these things is I'm going to be doing... Each episode is going to be 2 levels. So we've just done New Jersey. And then we're going to do Manhattan. So there was another little thing that was on my mind that I want to talk about. This whole idea of red pills. You see Andrew Tate saying that a lot. He goes, I'm the red pill. I broke free of the Matrix. And it's not that I'm calling bullshit on it. But here's my issue with that whole term. Because a lot of people pay lip service to the Matrix without really truly understanding what the actual film was about. And not even just the first film, because the first film's amazing. But the second film too plays a massive role into that Matrix lore. So for those who aren't familiar with the Matrix, at the beginning of the movie, Neo is given the option of taking either the blue pill or the red pill. So if he takes the blue pill, you go back to sleep, wake up in his bed, and believe whatever he wants to believe. Essentially, remaining subservient to the simulation that is the Matrix. If he takes the red pill, then Morpheus says to him, I will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that's what he does. He chooses the red pill. It's a very kind of paint by numbers in terms of narrative from a storytelling perspective, the hero's journey. What's called, I think it's called the point of no return. Same in Star Wars, you know, when Luke Skywalker decides, like, I'm going to be a Jedi like my father. I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, in story, your protagonist has to make a sort of, you know, a leap outside their comfort zone. They have to step outside the comfort zone in order to continue that arc. But anyway, so I digress. So Neo takes the red pill and learns that he is part of this prophecy. He is the one. And then as the film progresses, we start to see him take command and make some risky decisions. And as a result, he becomes the one. By the end of the film, he's flying. He can stop bullets with his mind. He can take out the agents with one arm. And it's great. But what people forget is that the second Matrix talks about how the prophecy was fabricated. It was a system of control, what you'd call controlled opposition. And hang on, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. Let's just do a little bit of recreational skating as I talk. So you get these pricks that are like, oh yeah, I'm aware of the bullshit. I'm a red pill. And it's like, well, look, being self-aware and being aware of the bullshit that is the establishment, that's not enough to qualify and label yourself a red pill, because you're still jacked into the Matrix. You know, you still rely on the system. Like me, like, yeah, I'm well aware of the bullshit that's going on. Well aware of it. But if it were to collapse tomorrow, oh yeah, I'd be struggling. You know what I mean? Where do we get our food from? Where do we get our water from? Like, as much as we hate the system, we're heavily dependent upon it, whether we like it or not. There are some people out there who have gone to extreme lengths to become completely self-sufficient. They've got their own land, their own water supply, their own energy supply. They're growing their own foods. That's being a red pill. But not this bullshit about, oh yeah, fuck the government. Which, you know, I agree with that sentiment. Don't get me wrong. I'm libertarian through and through. I don't mince my words on that one. You know, I guess you could call me an anarcho-capitalist, which is a bit extreme, but, you know, fuck government. Do I think private corporations are exempt from becoming just as corrupt as the government? No, I think, you know, I don't know, look, when it comes to like voting, when it comes to politics, I kind of take a step back a little bit, because, you know, you see arguments on Instagram, you see people clanking swords to one another with strangers. They're staring down at a rectangle in their hand, having an argument with someone they've never met, who they don't even know. They're just seeing a name, a profile, and that's it. They're putting all their rage, and it's all by design to keep us apart. Not only just living in fear, but living in a perpetual state of conflict. Because you can't control a civilization that's at peace with one another, that's at peace with themselves. It can't be done. So we have to be kept in a sort of constant state of anger, resentment, and despair. But not too much, because then, you know, it interferes with productivity. So another good word, drudgery. I got that from 1984, which is a great book, by the way. Hang on, I can hear a little rattling sound. Let's just readjust my mic. 1984 is a great work of dystopian fiction, by the way. And I say fiction, I read it like at least once a year. It's an easy book to read, it's well written, and it makes a lot of good points. Right, the last time I did this, the game soft locked, so 36 minutes of footage. I'm just going to put the controller aside for 1 second, just in case it does soft lock. For those who don't know what soft lock means, it basically means that it's going to go to a black screen and I'm going to have to turn the thing off and on again in order to keep going, and it's going to completely interrupt the recording. But yeah, regarding dystopian fiction, 1984 it completely blew me away. I read it, 10 years ago now. And every year I read it, and I'll see something new that I didn't pick up on the last time, or at the very least, it'll reinforce something or remind me of something like, oh, I forgot about that. And it just talks about this totalitarian regime. And when the lockdowns happened, it was very similar. You know, fear was used as a tool to control the populace, to control minds of people. Because if you make someone scared, you can pretty much make them do anything. Problem, reaction, solution. First you get a problem, all right? Then you get the outrage, the reaction from the people. And then you then offer that solution, even if the solution is being provided by entities that were themselves responsible for the problem. You know, it's a mind fuck. And I don't judge anyone. You know, there was a time when I was literally hated and loathed individuals that just would buy into it. But now I kind of pity them, and I kind of understand the perspective. It would be nice to live in a world where things were just straightforward. It would be nice to think that, you know, these entities, this plutocracy, if you will, I call it a plutocracy. It means an institution or a society that's governed by the wealthy. And that's what we do. That's what we live in. We live in a plutocracy. They're the ones calling the shot. They're part of this club that we're not in. That's a George Carlin quote. All right, here we go. A moment of truth. I'm not going to say just now. Right. Don't soft lock. Do not soft lock. Oh, thank God. That's what really fucked me over last time. Right. Let's do some missions. It's raining. It's dark. This does not make the gameplay any easier. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in. You know, and look, I'm not trying to be negative. You know, you can extract a lot of beauty from this shit show of a world reality that we live in. But my problem that I have in particular is with these virtue signaling wankers. You know, they like to... that was not part of the plan. They like to make out that they're more virtuous than you are. You know, whether it be because they care about the environment, or during that whole bloody fiasco in 2020, you know, they're stitching up their neighbours. They're trying to protect others, keep others safe, staying 6 feet apart, wearing your fucking face nappy and getting bloody jabbed. You know, I remember in 2021, I cannot see jack shit. Hang on. During 2021, when there was that whole division between vaccines and stuff like that, I never got vaccinated, right? Because as Tim Warner once said, God, instinct is your one true God. And I followed my instinct. I had a feeling. I said, you know what? I don't have a good feeling about this. I'm not even against vaccines, to be honest. And I'm not even against the mRNA technology. I'm just against this version 1.0. I was like, nah, you know what? Maybe in 30 years we'll have that conversation, you know? But, yeah, you know, Good Morning Britain, I think it was. They had Esther Ranson in that saying, like, I don't want them anywhere near me. If I'm at the theatre, you know, you had people like Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky? Am I saying that right? This is a man I actually used to look up to. I read his books and everything. And he's saying, like, yeah, you have the freedom to not accept the vaccine, but, you know, you should live separate in society. I'm thinking, really? Noam Chomsky? So-called libertarian? But he's a left-leaning libertarian. But anyway, the point I'm making is that, you know, people suddenly saw themselves as being virtuous. They saw themselves as being above those who'd made a choice different to theirs. And, you know, that's a slippery slope, because before you know it, suddenly you have these second-class citizens who are seen as unworthy. And it's happened all through history. But anytime you dehumanize a particular group of people, it's very easy to marginalize and become part of that hatred, because you suddenly, your brain is filled with fear and propaganda and lies. And then it comes a point where we don't even know why we hate these people. And then, you know, when I say these people, in this context, I'm talking about people who chose to be unvaccinated. They were being persecuted. They'll be saying, right, you're deprived of certain privileges because, I don't know, you know what? I'll talk about this at another time. But right now, I'm just sort of finding my rhythm with this whole playing video games and talking shit. I don't want to get too political just now, maybe at a later date. It's the kind of thing I prefer to have with someone else next to me, because it's easy to have someone sort of, especially if they have their own perspective, if they have a different opinion, that makes it so much more engaging for me personally. It's all well and good having me just rant away, but I much prefer to have someone there to challenge me. That was not part of the plan. I'd rather have someone there to challenge me and give their opinion, because it's important. Because what it does is it kind of forces you to have to rethink, regroup, and it's either going to further reinforce your ideals, or it's going to make, as long as there's not too much ego involved, you can be humble and say, all right, maybe you're right. Maybe I hadn't thought that through. Because like I said, we're all a work in progress until the day we die. But yeah, the point I'm making is I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just now. So keep it lighthearted, keep it spiritual, keep it positive. But I just say what comes to my head, Going back to that whole red pill thing. All right, I've got the special bar up. The second Matrix, it's revealed that the prophecy was a lie. It was another system of control. And because basically when the architect made the Matrix, he made it perfect, but no one would accept the simulation, so it didn't work. So he had to replicate human civilization as it was before the machines took over. And he was able to keep 99% of those plugged into the Matrix, in a state of ignorance, and keep them going. Whereas the 1% who, regardless of the architect's efforts, would still call bullshit and want to wake up from the simulation that was the Matrix. So in order to control that 1%, the architect created, with the Oracle, a fake prophecy. And Neo finds out in the end of the second film, Matrix Reloaded, that he's just he's just part of this controlled opposition. So that's why I get a bit peeved off when you get these pricks claiming to be red pills. It's like, well, have you seen the second film? Do you remember the second film? Because that's pretty important to the whole grand narrative. People talk about Donald Trump and that. And again, I said, I'm really ballsing this game up. The lighting, I've got to readjust my settings because this lighting is atrocious. I can't see Jet. It reminds me of, what was it? It reminds me of, Django Unchained. I can't see fucking shit. He goes, now, we all know. Oh, man. I didn't have this problem when it was just like the GameCube connected to the TV. But now that it's plugged into this HDMI capture card thing, it's really changed the lighting on this, and it makes nighttime an absolute, for fuck's sake. You're embarrassing me. Come on, man. This is just fucking embarrassing. If there's any gamers watching this, they're just gonna be like, this dude sucks. Oh, for fuck's sake, man. You've got 10 seconds. Come on. If I fail this, I'm not going to be a happy bunny whatsoever. What, did that not count? Was that not exempt? Yes. Oh, hallelujah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. So I'm going to say a few things and then we'll end it on that. This will be episode 1. So yeah, if you liked it, like and subscribe. I'll be doing this all the way to the end. If you want to support me and you like fiction, buy my book. Link is in the description. Audiobook coming out in 2 weeks. This has been a real pleasure. I've got plenty more things that I'm going to talk about. But yeah, it's just off the cuff. This is new to me. I enjoy it. It's all about learning new things. But that's it for now. All right, so yeah. Take care of yourself. Peace out.